You know that feeling when you finally get a raise? You walk into your boss's office, you negotiate, maybe you sweat a little, and you walk out with an extra 5% or even 10%. You feel like you've won. You feel like you're finally getting ahead. But then, 6 months later, you look at your bank account and realize nothing changed. Actually, it feels harder. You go to the grocery store and the cart looks half empty for the same price. You look at Zillow and the house you wanted, the one you were saving for, just went up by $50,000 in a single year. Your 5% raise is mathematically gone before you even spent it. Most people think this is just bad luck, or they think it's just corporate greed. But what if I told you there is a mathematical mechanism, a literal economic rule from the 1700s that guarantees this happens? It guarantees that every time the government helps the economy, you get poorer and the wealthy get richer. It's not a conspiracy, it's a formula. My name is William, and I spend way too much time thinking about how money is created and the policies that prevent average people from building wealth while protecting existing asset holders. If you're someone who feels like it's not that you don't work hard enough, but that the value of your labor is being stolen by a system designed to inflate assets you don't own yet, be sure to subscribe and like this video if it helps you. Here's the thing. We need to talk about Richard Cantillon. He was an Irish-French economist living in the 1700s, way before crypto, way before the Federal Reserve, way before credit cards. And he noticed something that nobody else was talking about. He noticed that when new money enters an economy, like when a king discovers a gold mine, or today when the Fed prints $1 trillion, that money doesn't just magically appear in everyone's pocket at the exact same time. It flows like water. And where that water hits first matters. See, most people have this helicopter money idea of inflation. They think the government prints money, drops it on the country, and everyone has more cash, so prices go up. If everyone has twice as much money and prices double, nothing changes, right? Wrong. That is the lie they tell you in Econ 101. In reality, money enters the economy at a specific point. Usually, it enters through the big banks and the government. This is the Cantillon Effect. The people who get the new money first, the banks, the hedge funds, the government contractors, they get to spend that money while prices are still low. They get to buy up the houses, the stocks, and the gold before the market realizes there is all this new cash floating around. By the time that money trickles down to you through your wages or maybe a stimulus check, prices have already risen. You are getting the scraps. Let me break this down with some real numbers because this is where it gets terrifying. Between 2020 and 2021, nearly 40% of all U.S. dollars in existence were printed. We're talking trillions. Now, did your bank account go up by 40%? Did your salary go up by 40%? Probably not. But look at who got the money first. The Federal Reserve printed that money and used it to buy bonds from major financial institutions. So Wall Street suddenly had trillions of dollars in liquidity. What did they do? Did they buy groceries? No, they bought assets. This is why the S&P 500 nearly doubled from its pandemic low. This is why housing prices in places like Austin, Texas, or Tampa, Florida went up 30, 40, sometimes 50% in 2 years. The people closest to the printer, the investors, saw their net worth skyrocket. They used the new money to buy the assets at the old prices. Now, let's look at you. You're at the bottom of the waterfall. You work for a salary. Wages are sticky. That's an economist term that basically means your boss hates giving you a raise. Wages are the last thing to go up in an inflationary environment. So the rich guy gets the money in January, he buys the house. The extra demand pushes the house price up. Then the contractor gets the money, then the subcontractor. By the time that money circulates through the economy and finally lands in your paycheck as a cost of living adjustment in December, the price of bread is up 15%, gas is up 20%, and that house, it's gone. You are paying the new high prices with your old low wages. That gap, that time delay between prices going up and your wages going up, that is effectively a wealth transfer from you to them. It's theft. It's just invisible.
Let's look at a specific example that really highlights this. Let's talk about the savings trap. Imagine you were a responsible person. You followed all the advice, you didn't buy the latte, you drove the used Honda, and you saved $50,000 in cash in a savings account earning 0.5% interest. You felt safe. Then the Cantillon Effect kicks in. The government prints money to stimulate the economy. That money flows into real estate. Suddenly, the house you wanted to buy for $300,000 is now $400,000. Your $50,000 savings didn't disappear, the number is the same, but its power just shrank. You didn't spend a dime, yet you lost the ability to buy a home. Who gained that power? The person who owned the house. They didn't work any harder than you. They didn't produce more value than you. They simply sat on an asset while the currency was devalued. This creates a massive psychological shift in society, and this is what really scares me. When the Cantillon effect is running hot, it punishes savers and rewards debtors. If you take out a massive loan to buy a rental property and then inflation hits, the debt stays the same number, but the rent you charge goes up. You are paying back the bank with cheaper dollars. The system is literally incentivizing you to take on debt and discouraging you from saving. Now, you might be thinking, okay, William, but isn't this just temporary? Doesn't it balance out eventually? Here's what most people don't realize. The damage is permanent. Once the price of a starter home goes from $200K to $400K, it rarely goes back to $200K. Wages might eventually creep up, but you have lost years of compounding. You missed the boat. The asset owners have moved to a new plateau of wealth, and the wage earners are stuck climbing a steeper mountain. And there is a statistic that proves this. Look at the wealth gap in America. In 1989, the top 10% held about 60% of total household wealth. Today, it's significantly higher. Every time there is a crisis, 2008, 2020, the money printer turns on, the Cantillon effect kicks in, and the gap widens. It's not because the rich are necessarily smarter, it's because they understand the game. They know that cash is trash. They know that when the printer starts whirring, you need to own things that are scarce. Stocks, real estate, gold, Bitcoin, whatever, just not dollars. The average person, however, is taught to save dollars, put it in the bank for a rainy day. That advice works in a world with sound money. In a Cantillon world, that advice is financial suicide. Let me give you an analogy that might make this stick. Imagine a public swimming pool. It's a hot day, and the pool represents the economy. The water level is the money supply. Now, imagine the government wants to add more water to the pool. But instead of turning on a gentle mist that covers everyone equally, they take a giant fire hose and blast it into one specific corner of the pool. If you are standing right in front of the hose, that's the banks, the large corporations, you get soaked instantly. You have all the water you need. You're having a great time. But if you're on the other side of the pool, you don't feel the water yet, but you do feel something else. The waves, the turbulence, the chaos caused by that massive injection. By the time the water level actually rises on your side, you've been battered by the waves, and you're struggling just to keep your head above water. That is the economy right now. The turbulence you feel, the struggle to pay for eggs, the anxiety about rent, that is the wave hitting you from money that was printed 2 years ago. So look, I don't tell you this to make you depressed. I tell you this because you can't win a game if you don't know the rules. And the rule is, the closer you are to the money printer, the richer you get. Since you probably can't start a major bank or get a government bailout, you have to do the next best thing. You have to position yourself alongside them. This means you have to change your mindset from saver to owner. In a high-inflation, money-printing environment, you need to own scarce assets. If you have $10,000 sitting in a checking account doing nothing, you are the victim of the Cantillon effect. You are the one paying the tax. This is where it gets really interesting, because the barriers to entry are actually lower than you think. You don't need to buy a whole house. You can buy REITs. You can buy fractional shares of the S&P 500. You can buy commodities. The goal is to get your labor, the money you worked hard for, out of the dollar vehicle and into an asset vehicle as fast as possible. You want to be holding the bucket when the water comes, not standing there getting splashed.
There is a famous quote, often attributed to Henry Ford, that says, "It is well enough that people of the nation do not understand our banking and monetary system, for if they did, I believe there would be a revolution before tomorrow morning." The Cantillon Effect is exactly what he was talking about. It is a system that allows the government to tax you without passing a law. If they raised your income tax by 20%, you would riot. But if they print 20% more money, devaluing your savings by 20%, most people just shrug and say, "Man, groceries are getting expensive." Don't just shrug. Understand that every dollar you keep in cash is a bet on the government not printing money. And looking at history, that's a losing bet. If you're sitting there thinking, "Well, I don't have enough money to invest yet," that is the trap. You will never have enough if the target keeps moving away from you. You have to start with whatever you have. The wealthy use debt to buy assets that inflate. The poor use debt to buy liabilities that depreciate. And the middle class saves cash that loses value. You have to break that cycle. You have to stop playing the game by the rules of 1980 and start playing by the rules of 2024. Stop saving for a rainy day in a currency that is melting. Build a dam. Buy assets. Protect your time. Because at the end of the day, money is just stored time. And if they can print money, they are stealing your time. If this video made you a little angry, good. Use that energy. Educate yourself on asset allocation. Look into how the Fed actually works. Don't let them invisible tax you into poverty. My name is William, and I'll see you in the next one.